Hi, good day everyone, and at this video I'm going to discuss a new topic entitled Survey of African Literature. Before that, let me introduce you to some facts about Africa. First, it is the second largest continent of the world. It is one of the 7 continents of the world and is only smaller than Asia. Second, there are 54 countries in Africa. This includes Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, and Ethiopia, and many more. Third, Africa has the world's largest desert. Sort of, the Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world. Well, technically the largest hot desert, it is the third largest desert overall, smaller only than the deserts of Antarctica and the northern Arctic. Now, these are the most widely spoken languages in Africa. First, Swahili. The Bantu language Swahili is spoken by about 150 million people in Central and Southern Africa in the Great Lakes region. The origin of the word Swahili comes from Arabic and means coast. For the inhabitants along the coast from Somalia to Mozambique, Swahili is the mother tongue. Next one is Arabic. More than 100 million Africans speak Arabic, illustrating the external influences that have shaped life on the continent for many centuries. In Ethiopia, Niger, Senegal, and also in Tanzania, Arabic is spoken mainly on official occasions. Third, French. The French language came to the African continent with colonization, and now about 90 million people speak French in 26 countries. The language is mostly spoken in Mauritius, Cote d'Ivoire, and Gabon. Fourth, Hausa. An Afro-African language is taught in Nigeria and Niger alongside their respective official languages. About 80 million Africans speak Hausa, and in France, in Sudan, there is a radio station broadcasting in Hausa. Hausa is playing a growing role in West African regions, especially in trade and business, and the language is also taught at international universities. Now, let's move to how did African literature started. Modern African literatures were born in the educational system imposed by colonialism, with models drawn from Europe rather than existing African traditions, but the African oral tradition exerted their own influence on this literature. In oral tradition, the nature of storytelling. The storyteller speaks, time collapses, and the members of the audience are in the present of history. It is a time of masked reality, the present is here, but with explosive emotional images giving it a context. This is the storyteller's art to mask the past, making it mysterious, seemingly inaccessible. Moreover, the body of traditional oral and written literatures in Afro-Asiatic and African languages, together with works written by Africans in European languages, traditional written literature, which is limited to a smaller geographic area that is oral literature, is most characteristic of those sub-Saharan cultures that have participated in the cultures of the Mediterranean. Now, looking back at the history of African literature, its origin is dated back thousands of years ago to ancient Egypt through hieroglyphs or pictorial representation of words. Over time, the use of hieroglyphs became widespread around Egypt and became more developed. In this one, we're going to introduce you the 4 different types of African literature. First is oral literature, second, pre-colonial African literature, third, colonial African literature, fourth is post-colonial literature. Oral literature or orature, the term coined by Ugandan scholar Payo Zerimo, may be in prose or verse. The prose is often mythological or historical and often includes tales of the trickster's character. Next is pre-colonial literature. It refers to works written before white men arrived on the African continent. Oral traditions and folk tales were used, which made children's literature of the time period particularly interesting. Next is colonial African literature. The term colonial African literature refers to literature published during or about colonial period in Africa. It could have been written by colonialists because it emphasizes the African as the inferior other and attempts to justify the colonial mission of the West. Post-colonial African literature refers to work published after various African countries acquired political independence from European colonial rule. Next is the 3 waves of African literacy, or basically how the Africans have started to write this type of literature. First, that Ethiopia, where written works have been discovered that appeared before the earliest literatures in the Semitic and Germanic languages of Western Europe. Second, when the Africa in its widespread of Islam from the 7th century to the 19th century. Third, the encounter with Europe through trade relationships, missionary activities, and colonialism propelled the 3rd wave of literacy in Africa in 19th and 20th century. Now, in this new discussion, we're going to know the characteristics and genre of African literature. First characteristic of African literature is the slave narrative, are one of the most significant traditions in American literature, influencing the form and subjects of some of the most famous and decisive work of fictions and autobiography in the country's history. Next characteristic is the African pride. African literature includes works created by Africans in European languages, as well as traditional oral and written literatures in Afro-Asian and African languages. Next characteristic is descent. The United States was established on descent, and some of the most enduring works of American literature deal with politically controversial issues at the time. And lastly, is the call for independence. Nationalist leaders with captivating personalities and excellent academic capacity led independence efforts. They were able to interpret notions of equality and nationalism as international pan-Africanists. That's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you've learned a lot. Thank you and bye-bye.